A medieval map just appeared that could solve the Oak Island mystery forever, or destroy it completely. The document claims to be from 1347 and shows detailed drawings of what looks exactly like Smith's Cove and the Money Pit. Hidden codes supposedly reveal the words gold and biblical references, but historians are calling it an obvious hoax. The French writing is wrong, the timing is suspicious, and it appeared right when the TV show needed new content. The Lagina brothers are investigating anyway. After 200 years of searching, they can't afford to ignore even a fake lead. The whole thing started back in 1795. A teenage boy named Daniel McGinnis was walking with two friends on a small island off Nova Scotia. They noticed something strange in the ground. It was a circular depression, around 9 feet across, like the earth had once been disturbed. Daniel had heard old rumors about pirates in the area. Some stories said a dying pirate once spoke about hidden treasure buried deep underground. The boys got curious. They started digging with simple tools and barely any equipment. Just 2 feet below the surface, they found a flat layer of flagstones. Beneath that, there were wooden planks made of oak. They kept going, and at every 10-foot level, they found another wooden platform. By the time they reached around 30 feet, something felt wrong. People in the area believed the place was cursed, and there was a chilling tale that 7 men had to die before the treasure could be found. Feeling scared, the boys stopped digging. They hadn't found treasure yet, but they had opened a mystery that would haunt treasure hunters for centuries. Years passed, but word spread quickly. By 1802, a group calling itself the Onslow Company arrived and started digging where the boys left off. They reached around 90 feet and confirmed the earlier layers were real. Every 10 feet, they found logs, filled dirt, strange things like charcoal, blue clay, and even coconut fiber. That last detail made people stop and wonder, because coconut trees didn't grow anywhere near Nova Scotia. That exact type of fiber was later carbon dated and found to be centuries old. The diggers also discovered a flat stone with odd symbols carved into it. No one could figure out what it meant. But at around 90 feet, seawater flooded in out of nowhere, fast and relentless. The pit was ruined, and they couldn't go further. In 1849, the Truro Company gave it a shot. They cleaned the old shaft and tried to dig deeper, but once again, seawater poured in. They used augers to go below the water and brought up more coconut fiber, some black wood, spruce logs, and little bits of corroded metal. It looked like something had once been buried. But again, there was no sign of gold or jewels. Even with all their effort, they left empty-handed. By the 1860s, interest exploded again. In 1861, a group called the Oak Island Association took over. They brought in more money, more men, and more tools. They widened the main shaft and dug 2 side tunnels. They reached down to around 88 feet and tried to connect sideways into the original pit. What happened next was terrifying. At around 100 feet, a platform inside the original shaft suddenly gave way and collapsed all the way down to 119 feet, dragging at least 2 more platforms with it. If treasure had ever been resting on one of those layers, it was now gone, dropped even deeper. And once again, the ocean seemed to fight back. Seawater came rushing in, and pumps couldn't keep up. The men built wooden dams on the nearby Smith's Cove to try to stop the flood. The ocean just smashed through. Things only got worse. Later that same year, a steam pump's boiler exploded and killed at least 1 man. That death added to the legend of the curse. People started whispering that 1 life had now been claimed, and 6 more were still needed. The company didn't stop. In 1862, they dug another shaft to a depth of 107 feet, hoping it would help drain water. Instead, they mostly found tools left behind by previous teams. In 1864, they tried again, but the flooding never stopped. By 1865, the shaft was declared unsafe, and the company was out of money. Even then, people didn't give up. Another team called the Halifax Company tried in 1866. They brought in smarter drilling equipment and aimed to find clues using smaller boreholes. But all they found were more layers of wood and dense blue clay. Nothing else. By 1867, they too walked away with nothing. By the end of the 1800s, the excitement about Oak Island had gone quiet, but then it suddenly came alive again. In 1896 and 1897, a mysterious group showed up with steam-powered pumps and heavy drills. They were sure they had found one of the flood tunnels. As they kept digging, they pulled out a tiny piece of something strange. It looked like vellum, old writing material, with either the letters Phi or Wi scratched into it. That tiny scrap created a new wave of wild theories. Then, in March 1897, things turned tragic. One of the workers fell down a shaft and died. In 1898, there were rumors that someone had poured red dye into the flooded pit to trace where the water was escaping. They said 3 streams of red water showed up offshore, suggesting hidden underwater tunnels. But no treasure followed. The most famous dig of the early 1900s came in 1909. A man named Captain Henry Beaudoin joined forces with a group of investors, and one of them was Franklin D. Roosevelt, who would later become president. They formed something called the Old Gold Salvage Group. They cleared out the original money pit all the way down to 113 feet, and even sent divers inside. But they found nothing. That same year, Beaudoin also investigated the mysterious inscribed stone that earlier searchers said had strange symbols. But after checking it in Halifax, he reported it was just a plain piece of basalt with no visible markings. In November 1909, Beaudoin admitted defeat and left the island empty-handed. After World War I, almost no one returned for over a decade. In 1931, a wealthy man named William Chappell became interested. He dug a new shaft 163 feet deep, just south of the original pit. He found a miner's pick, an anchor, and an old axe. But the place was already filled with junk from earlier excavations. These tools only proved people had been digging here for decades. They didn't prove there was any treasure. Then came Gilbert Hedden, a steel businessman, who got obsessed after reading about Chappell's dig. From 1935 to 1939, Hedden continued the search. He even wrote letters to King George VI asking for help. But just like the others, he never found anything real. 10 years later, in 1949, something strange happened. Workers were digging a well on the shore of Mahone Bay, not far from Oak Island. As they dug, they hit layers of spruce and oak wood underneath packed fieldstones, just like the early descriptions of the money pit. For a short time, people thought they had found a second hidden shaft, but it had nothing to do with treasure. The dig was quickly abandoned. In 1959, a man named Robert Restall showed up on the island with his 18-year-old son and a partner named Carla Gracer. They leased part of the land and started digging again. They thought they had found one of the secret flood tunnels at Smith's Cove and began trying to block it. In August 1965, something horrible happened. Restall went down a newly dug 27-foot shaft and passed out from deadly gas. His son rushed in to save him, but also passed out. 2 more men followed, trying to help, and both collapsed too. All 4 men died. It was one of the worst accidents in the island's history. That brought the death toll on Oak Island to 6. The remaining team members, including a high school student who had survived, filled the shaft back in. Not long after, a new man took over the lease. His name was Robert Dunfield. He didn't just bring shovels. He built an entire road, a causeway, from Crandall's Point to the island to get heavy machines across. He brought in a massive 70-ton crane and dug a huge hole. By 1966, he had reached a depth of 134 feet. That was deeper than anyone had gone before. But once again, all he found was clay, mud, and wood shavings. No treasure. His lease ended that same year, and he left with nothing. In 1967, a new group came together. Daniel Blankenship, David Tobias, and even Dunfield himself formed what they called the Triton Alliance. In 1971, they drilled a deep steel-lined shaft called Borehole 10X right next to the original money pit. It reached 72 meters deep. When they lowered a camera into the hole, they said they saw images of wooden chests and even what looked like human remains. But those videos were never proven real. The borehole collapsed later, and they had to redig it all the way down to 181 feet. Even after that, they still didn't find the treasure. By the 1980s, arguments and legal battles between the partners started breaking things apart. The project slowed down. By the 1990s, everything had mostly stopped. After more than 80 years of modern digging, not one single piece of confirmed treasure had been recovered. Only broken tools, fragments of wood, and a trail of heartbreak. In 2005, something unexpected happened. A quiet mystery that had fascinated treasure hunters for over 200 years suddenly got a new spark. Two brothers from Michigan, Rick and Marty Lagina, decided to go all in. They weren't pirates or treasure hunters by trade. Rick was a retired postal worker who had been obsessed with Oak Island since he read about it in Reader's Digest as a kid. Marty was an engineer and businessman who had built a fortune in energy. They weren't interested in fairy tales. They believed something real might still be hidden deep underground. In April 2006, they bought half of Oak Island tours from David Tobias. That gave them access to the land. But more importantly, it gave them access to the mystery. With that step, they officially became part of a 200-year-old search. The brothers didn't come empty-handed. They brought with them modern science, serious money, and a team of experts. Over the next few years, they secured a rare treasure trove license from the government. That meant they were legally allowed to search for treasure and keep what they found. They brought in sonar machines, ground radar, metal detectors, drilling rigs, and diving equipment. They wanted answers, not rumors. Then, in 2014, something happened that changed everything. The History Channel launched a new show called The Curse of Oak Island. Suddenly, this quiet mystery became a worldwide obsession. Millions of viewers started tuning in every week to watch the brothers dig, drill, and argue. For the first time, the world wasn't just hearing old stories. They were watching it unfold in real time. Every small find became a big event. And some of the finds really were strange. In one area, they found wooden structures deep underground. When they tested the wood, it turned out to be from the 1200s to 1400s. That meant someone had been there long before the famous discovery in 1795. They also found coconut fibers buried deep in the soil, which made no sense since coconuts don't grow anywhere near Nova Scotia. That alone left everyone confused. Why would anyone haul coconut fiber across oceans hundreds of years ago? In Smith's Cove, divers found an old Spanish silver coin. It was from the 1650s. In another area, they found a gemstone brooch. Carbon dating showed it came from the 1500s. Then came something even stranger, a small Christian cross made of lead. Experts believed it was from the 1300s and probably made somewhere in Europe. All of these objects were buried far below the surface, and none of them seemed to belong there. Each new discovery raised more questions. The team brought in more people: divers, archaeologists, geologists, even historians. Every season they tried new tools. They scanned the ground with radar, dropped cameras into flooded shafts, and mapped out underground tunnels. Some of those tunnels looked man-made, others didn't. But still, the jackpot remained hidden. By 2025, the treasure still hadn't been found. But the belief hadn't died either. 6 people have lost their lives during Oak Island expeditions over the last 2 centuries. That's one short of the mysterious legend that says 7 must die before the treasure is revealed. Whether you believe in that or not, the danger is real. Some accidents happened during digging, others during cave-ins, and some during diving. That hasn't stopped the team. They still go back every year, hoping the next shovel of dirt might be the one. Marty Lagina once said in 2014 that his brother Rick is a true believer. He meant that Rick really believes something important lies buried there. It doesn't have to be gold. It could be historical proof that changes how we see the past. When they found the coconut fiber dated between 1200 and 1400 AD, Marty looked at it and asked, "Now what the heck?" That was the moment he knew this mystery was bigger than he imagined. For more than 200 years, people have searched Oak Island hoping to find something legendary. They've dug deep pits, spent millions, and risked everything. But one of the strangest things about this mystery isn't what's been found. It's what people believe is still buried there. The theories are wild, shocking, and sometimes feel almost impossible. But they keep people coming back, year after year. The oldest story goes back to pirates. In 1857, an article described a dying pirate, possibly Captain Kidd, whispering a secret about treasure. He said that 2 million British pounds were hidden somewhere, and many believed he meant Oak Island. Back then, 2 million pounds would be worth more than $200 million today. Ever since, people have searched for pirate gold under that muddy ground. But here's the thing. There's no proof Captain Kidd was ever near Nova Scotia. He died in 1701. The story only appeared over 150 years later, with no real evidence. Then there's the theory about the Knights Templar and the Freemasons. This one sounds like something out of a secret society novel. People started noticing strange symbols on Oak Island. In the late 1900s, a writer named Mark Finnan said these symbols looked like Masonic carvings. Others followed, like Dennis King, who believed the island was tied to Freemason legends about a hidden vault. In 2016, Stephen Sora went even further. He claimed that the Knights Templar, forced out of Europe in the 1300s, crossed the ocean and buried holy treasures like the Ark of the Covenant or even the Holy Grail on Oak Island. But historians have pushed back hard. They say there's zero proof that the Templars ever reached North America. Many of the documents shown on TV have turned out to be fake. One expert said, "To believe this, you'd have to accept that 14th century knights crossed the Atlantic and built a complex trap system, with no evidence they were even here." Another theory sounds more like a hidden library than a treasure pit. In 1953, a writer named Penn Leary believed Oak Island was hiding manuscripts written by Francis Bacon. Not just any manuscripts, original Shakespeare plays or secret writings meant to prove that Bacon was the real author behind Shakespeare's name. People have since claimed they found secret codes in Shakespeare's work that point to Oak Island. It sounds dramatic, but no documents have ever been found. Most historians call it pure fantasy. Then there's the story of Queen Marie Antoinette's missing jewels. This one feels like a fairy tale. During the French Revolution, the Queen was arrested. According to legend, before her capture, she gave her jewels to a maid. That maid supposedly escaped through London, made her way across the Atlantic, and buried the diamonds on Oak Island. It's a powerful story. Royalty, escape, lost treasure. But again, there's no real evidence, no records, no names, nothing to prove it happened. It survives only through whispered legends. Some people have gone even further with their theories. One story talks about a Spanish shipwreck. They imagine a galleon sinking near the island, with survivors dragging gold ashore and hiding it. Others have mentioned medieval maps that seem to mark Oak Island, or even star charts pointing to it as a secret location. In the 1970s, Barry Fell had a strange theory. He claimed that Coptic Christians from ancient Egypt made it all the way to Nova Scotia and dug the Money Pit. That idea was popular for a short time, but it has since been completely rejected by experts. What's fascinating is that all these stories share one thing: they sound magical. They talk about lost gold, sacred objects, secret codes, and ancient journeys. They pull people in. They make you want to believe. But after more than 2 centuries of searching, none of these ideas have been proven. Not one coin, one manuscript, one relic has been found that can be clearly tied to any of these tales. One writer summed it up by saying, "Oak Island's legend is a blend of pirate gold, secret societies, royal diamonds, and ancient scrolls, but all we really have is a mystery." In late 2024, something surfaced that left even longtime Oak Island researchers stunned. A hand-drawn map, claimed to be from the year 1347, was revealed to the public. At first glance, it seemed like just another old curiosity. But when people zoomed in, it sent chills down the spines of experts. The map was labeled in French, and right there in ink was the phrase "Les îles de Chêne." That means the islands of oak. Immediately, people began connecting it to Oak Island in Nova Scotia. Even more strange was how it was written. Not just the words, but the spelling, the grammar, even the direction of the compass. Nothing about it followed the rules of the 14th century. The compass rose had west placed at the top instead of north, something rarely seen. In the margins of the map were names like Le Bateau and La Barque, both referring to boats. One spot was even labeled Le Trou sous la Trappe, which means hole under the hatch, strangely close to the Money Pit's location. At the very bottom of the map, in messy handwriting, was a phrase that caught everyone's attention. Les Sud-Indiens travaillent très bon. That was supposed to mean the Southern Indians work very well, but it was full of basic French errors. Then came the phrase Le Lionceau de Talmont, which means the Lion Cub of Talmont. This seemed to refer to a French castle and possibly a noble bloodline. As the Oak Island team investigated, they found more. The map was said to come with coded letters. One letter described a journey between 1178 and 1180 to an island of oaks. Another showed this supposed medieval map, but when experts looked closer, they started seeing problems. The language was full of simple errors that no real medieval scribe would make. Words were missing accents, plurals were written wrong, and even the articles were off. For example, le atterrissage was written without the correct apostrophe. It should have been l'atterrissage. The phrase les îles de Chêne was grammatically broken. It should have said l'île de Chêne. A historian said plainly, "These are basic French mistakes." Another added, "The person who made this didn't know French." So was it fake? That's exactly what many started to think. Linguists said the map looked like it was written by someone pretending to know medieval French, but actually just copying Oak Island legends. One professor said, "Every indication is that the map is recent." A translation blog noted that parts of it, like the name François La Rochefoucauld, started with a real person's name, but then turned into complete gibberish. The map called a bay La Anse, which is wrong. It should be Lance. Another part said Les Ancres, or the anchors, again with errors. There was a strange warning on the map too. Ne vous allez ici avec le bateau, which was supposed to say, don't go here by boat. That warning was placed near what many believe to be Smith's Cove, the area that has fascinated treasure hunters for decades. Fans of the show pointed out that the drawings on the map matched up loosely with Smith's Cove and the Money Pit. But critics weren't convinced. They said the map only seemed like a clue if you were already looking for one. Then came an even wilder twist. According to some of Halpern's supporters, there were secret codes hidden in the documents. One amateur cryptographer said he cracked it and found the words gold and Joab. Joab in the Bible was a general under King David. Suddenly, some believers started spinning stories about Israelites, Vikings, and Templars all hiding treasure together on this island. But again, none of this could be verified. None of the original documents were ever released, just copies. One expert dryly said the phrase, "vault below earth," was written like someone had translated it word for word from English. Another clue, it was modern. Skeptics spoke out. Archaeologists, linguists, historians, they all said the same thing. This map didn't feel like history. It felt like a hoax. Professor Andrei Kostopoulos wrote, "Every indication is that the map is recent." Experts on Quebec French explained that the grammar mistakes looked like they came from someone who barely studied the language. Dan Conlin, a Canadian historian, pointed out that Oak Island's geology had natural holes and sink points. Nothing needed a story of buried gold. He said the underground chambers and wood were probably caused by water and limestone, not ancient treasure traps. Even Joe Nickel, a professional skeptic who looked into Oak Island back in 2000, said the whole story felt made up. He called the treasure hunting a fantastic quest, but said it had no solid proof. The map, he believed, was just another story built on top of other stories, like a castle made of fog. Still, the treasure hunters weren't ready to toss it aside. Rick and Marty Lagina, the brothers at the center of the Oak Island show, kept an open mind. They allowed experts to look at Halpern's map and related papers. Marty said that even if something seems unlikely, if it's a possible clue, it deserves attention. Back in 2014, when coconut fiber from Smith's Cove was dated between 1200 and 1400 AD, Marty had shouted, "Now what the heck?" That mystery still bothered him. And now, with this new map, he wanted to believe. But they also remained careful. Craig Tester, their colleague, said recently, "It'd be great if it were something big, but I keep my expectations low." They weren't just chasing stories. They tried to follow science. Every piece of wood or soil was tested. They used carbon dating, radar scans, and magnetometers. They recorded everything. But even with all this effort, the academic world stayed skeptical. No serious historian could find a record of Oak Island or Ile des Chênes in any medieval source. No explorer from the 1300s ever mentioned Nova Scotia. What troubled scholars most was how conveniently this map appeared. After centuries, with no medieval record ever mentioning Oak Island, a map dated 1347 just shows up in 2024, and it points to the exact same spot the TV show had made famous. Critics asked, how likely is that? They also asked, why would someone in 1347 draw a map of an unknown island across the ocean and label it with French names, bad grammar, and references to future legends? Why would it sit hidden for centuries and then suddenly emerge? Just in time for a new season of a treasure hunting show? To many, the answer was obvious. The map wasn't from 1347. It was modern. And it was made to look old. As soon as it hit the internet, the Oak Island community went wild. Forums lit up with blurry screenshots and endless debates. One excited user zoomed in and claimed it perfectly matched the outline of Smith's Cove and the spot where they dug up timber back in 2018. Another even overlaid the shape of the money pit and said the angles lined up exactly. But not everyone was buying it. One independent blogger posted a furious takedown, calling it nothing more than an old doodle with a few lucky squiggles. He warned the Laginas not to fall for it, saying it was just another distraction in a long line of them. Still, the map wasn't ignored. It sparked something inside the Lagina brothers. Marty especially seemed fired up. He told a reporter that they weren't ready to call it proof, but it was pushing them to look at old spots with new energy. Rick, usually more reserved, mentioned the strange cross they had found years earlier, believed to be from the 1300s, and said, "We've seen miracles before. Why not again?" They both agreed that if there were even a 1% chance the map was connected to something real, they couldn't afford to ignore it. That's when things really started moving. The crew went back to the archives, pulling out every document that hinted at French presence on the island. They double-checked the Rochefoucauld lead, revisited the theories around Templar refugees, and even re-examined that strange stone inscribed with symbols no one had ever translated. Every detail that once seemed random was now reinterpreted through the lens of the map. Even areas that had been abandoned years ago were now flagged for new exploration. But not everyone watching from the sidelines was impressed. Dan Conlon, a respected historian who had followed the Oak Island dig for over 2 decades, told a Canadian paper that real progress on the island never came from theories. It came from objects. Coconut fibers, Roman coins, wooden tunnels. Those are what changed things, he said. Not maps that show up after 700 years with no confirmed origin. He wasn't trying to shut down the excitement, but he reminded everyone that the island had a long history of wild claims and broken promises.